Told my wife I wanted a divorce after falling for a coworker. She ended up dying by Suic-de, and now I'm lost and tortured. My wife and I met when we were in our late teens. She had an extremely traumatic upbringing, and severe alcohol abuse issues with occasional drug use. She would drink to blackout and was physically violent with me during these periods, and during binges would make occasional suicide attempts or threats, and was physically violent with others. She would flirt with and hang out with other men while blackout drunk. On 3 occasions throughout our relationship I saw her kissing other men while fall down drunk. She would constantly accuse me of cheating despite me being totally faithful. For those who will say she chose to drink and is responsible for her drunken actions, that is not how addiction works. What she did choose was to not seek help for herself and play an active role in her recovery. So ultimately she is responsible, but her behavior while drunk doesn't hurt as bad because I know it was driven by illness. What did hurt was that she didn't address the causes of this and continued to minimize, deny, and dismiss the significance of her past on her drinking, and her drinking on our lives. This was a source of conflict, but ultimately I chose to support her journey, love her and support her as best as I could, and hope things improved over time and as we aged and matured. Together she would one day be ready to face her past and address the root causes of her drinking. As we aged, the frequency decreased, but it was still really bad. She had awful social anxiety and we were not able to socialize with my friend group because the result would be awkward or embarrassing situations due to excessive drinking. Bouts of suicidal threats or attempts decreased significantly, but binge drinking continued and occasional violence still happened. I smoked a lot of weed, but was functional and successful in my career. I do not drink and was not physically abusive. I was emotionally abusive. For example, I would yell at her the day after she did something like run off into the night drunk and go into traffic, hit me or someone I love, and so on. It's worth noting that I grew up with an alcoholic father and then my mom was with a man for my high school years who was alcoholic and abusive, and that my father eventually overdosed and died when I was a young adult. My wife and I moved about 2,500 miles across the country to my home city with the goal of me starting a business and us getting away from people and places that were very triggering for her. It went pretty well. She went back to work in her profession to help cover bills while I started my company. Prior to having our child, she worked but did not drive. I would drive her to work, drive to meet her at lunch, drive to pick her up. I began earning so much money that we lost more by me driving her around than she would earn, and as a couple we were further ahead with her not working. She stopped working, and said she drank because she was bored. If she was going to be at home, she wanted to be a mom. She swore she would stop drinking to have a child, and she did. We got pregnant and she stopped entirely. The pregnancy was awful, the birth was complicated, and mid-COVID, we had no family support. I was busy with my company, she was overwhelmed being the 24/7 caregiver to a demanding infant/toddler. We stopped having sex due to her pregnancy difficulties, and didn't resume due to birthing injuries. I stayed faithful, and dealt with my sexual needs myself. Sidebar is that I am a very sexual person and had always struggled with our sexual relationship. At times, when she would get drunk and become abusive I would consider straying. I went as far as going for a walk with a girl once but felt awful and told the girl I had to leave. When our son was around a year old, she was clearly feeling overwhelmed, which was very reasonable. Even the most functional person would feel overwhelmed being with an infant 24/7 with no friends, no family, and a disengaged husband. She started drinking again as a result, but at the time I didn't see how this was a symptom of her lack of support. All I saw was that my son was going to grow up like I did, and she was breaking her promise, without trying to get help. One night around 2 a.m. I heard noises in our bedroom and found her passed out drunk with our toddler crawling around the floor. I went in and grabbed our toddler, and angrily yelled, "What are you doing? If you passed out with him on the chair you could have suffocated him." And started leaving with him. She got angry and punched me in the face and pulled our toddler from my arms. I completely lost my temper and for the first time ever I hit her back. I hit her like a father would hit the back of a child's head when they're misbehaving. It was fairly hard. She started crying. Something broke inside me in that moment. The level of abuse, dysfunction, my disappointment in myself for hurting her, for hurting our child, for bringing him into this environment and failing to make life safe and stable. For him, it all flooded me. I had become a horrible, hateful person. I had so much resentment for my wife, my partner in life, my co-parent, that I hit her. I felt sick to my stomach and knew that I would never do something like this again. If I ever got near that point, I need to leave, not just the physical space, but the relationship. The next day we talked, and she said she deserved it, and knew she needed to change. More of the same, not addressing the issues, but feeling shameful and swearing off drinking for a time, only to eventually build enough resentment and stress to justify returning. Infrequently binge nights happened, but they were limited to her playing loud music which was upsetting, but I did my best to ignore it and try to sleep. We moved to a new house in the fall of 2022, and things were good in terms of drinking. She didn't really drink at home at all. We had sex maybe twice a month, but it felt like a chore and seemed to hurt her. Life was a grind. I would get up, work, come home, do childcare, and she would try to see me for a bit after our toddler fell asleep. Usually, we'd be together for 10 to 20 minutes before he would wake up screaming. It was so stressful that she would sometimes not try to see me and just stay in bed scrolling for a couple of hours before sleeping herself. I could see that it frustrated and overwhelmed her too. We had zero time to ourselves. Her family was not functional and in another part of the country. My family had all passed away. She didn't want any babysitters until our toddler could speak clearly and was mature enough to share any situations of mistreatment. I felt like a paycheck. She felt like a mom robot. She was trying hard, staying sober. She got her license, she would drive him to some appointments. I tried talking to her about driving to appointments across the city so I didn't need to leave work, but she was too nervous with our toddler in the car. She tried talking to me about being more involved and present. All she wanted from me was to get up with them at 7 to 8 a.m. They slept together in our bed, so she was alone at night and alone getting up in the morning. I slept in the basement. I would often work or game until 3 to 4 a.m. and get up around 9 to 10 a.m. I asked her to move him into the baby room, but she wouldn't because she felt anxious that she was too far away at night, unable to respond in time for a fire, wouldn't hear a medical issue, etc. I was upset that I paid for a 4-bedroom house in an expensive area and we used 1 bedroom. She was upset about my lack of support. I was upset about our lack of connection. She was too. I asked for therapy, but she refused. I started developing feelings for a coworker. I told myself that if I hit midlife and dedicated 15 years to this person and drinking was still a problem, and on top of that I'm developing feelings for other women, and feeling like my attempts to resolve things with my wife weren't working, that I needed to end the relationship before I cheated. I brought up that I was in a really scary mental state, that I wasn't doing well mentally, and that I needed her to hear me. I needed connection. She got angry and refused to do anything until I stepped up. She brought up all the wrong I had done. The next time she drank, she played loud music while I was trying to put our child to bed. I texted her about it and she told me something like, "Now you know how it feels to struggle alone as a parent, bud." The next day, I told her I wanted a divorce. Her reaction scared the shit out of me. She was so sad and scared she was shaking, crying, begging me to stay. I felt so fucking bad, so awful, so guilty. It hurt me so deeply to see the woman I love hurting so bad. I knew I was developing intense feelings for another woman and felt checked out, but how the fuck do I just leave the mother of my child, who has no other supports, in this state? At the same time, how do I continue? I was totally tapped out. I had nothing left. I was so sad, but also so angry that she didn't go to therapy with me before, that I went through more than a decade of intense abuse and infidelity. She refused to address it, but now that something is hurting her, she is totally invested in therapy, and that I don't want to was seen by her as unfair, not giving her a chance, abandoning and betraying her. It was so hard. I told her I don't want to reconcile until I see her do the work to address the root causes of her drinking. No more caving and forgiving because of promises to be better. I need to see it first. My feelings for my coworker were getting stronger, as we worked closely together. I told myself I need to either forget about other women and totally dedicate myself to my wife altogether and accept a lifetime of struggle with these issues, or try connecting with another woman to see what it's like. I began opening up about my emotional pain to my coworker. She told me she was going through a breakup, and I lied and said I was too. I took my ring off at work so she would be more open to talking to me deeply. I thought I would wait until my wife had done some therapy, and cut off the conversations with my coworker if my wife put in the effort and made progress. My wife wouldn't go to therapy solo, or AA, she said she doesn't need it, and was only interested in going with me. This made it seem to me like she wasn't focused on her drinking or her trauma, only in reconciling. To reconcile, I needed her to make that shift. I was growing closer with my coworker, and we started going for drives outside of work, at night. My car broke down in a remote spot and it was the middle of a cold snap in March. The tow truck was a 2-hour wait. We huddled up, and I put my arm around her. I hadn't had sex or orgasmed at all in weeks, and was not thinking clearly. I started touching her sexually, and we had sex. It was very fast, only a couple of minutes. As soon as I finished, the tow truck came. I took her home and went home myself. I felt sick and I went to what was now my basement apartment and cried while I cleaned myself. I reached out to a male friend who told me to deny until I die. I thought my wife might kill herself if I told her, but I wonder if we could have worked through it. Maybe I was just selfish and a coward. Weeks went by, and I did couples therapy with my wife. I wasn't able to invest fully because of my connection with my coworker. Even without her, I don't know if I would have been able to succeed in couples therapy. When I brought up the years of unaddressed abuse, resentment, and betrayal, my wife would, fairly, point out that it was years ago. "I'm just focusing on the negative, let's move forward." We couldn't seem to focus on and get validation about my past hurts with her, and she didn't want to do AA or therapy individually for her trauma. I stopped going to couples therapy and started engaging with my coworker more. I told my wife that I needed space to think and just see if my feelings change. This was true in a way, but I didn't give her a fair shot at all because there was no space for my feelings to change. She stayed sober, and was an absolute rock star mom and partner. I feel so fucking awful for being unfaithful to her. She caught on, and started finding evidence. She found my coworker's hair on my shirt and asked me about it. I denied it. She looked through my phone records and noticed I'd been calling her frequently. I told her I felt a connection with her and was confiding in her, but that was all. That wasn't true. She demanded I stop, and I said I would. I stopped for a few weeks, then started again. She found cat hair on my clothes one night, and I denied being at my coworker's house. Another time, she noticed stains on my pants, which I said were from masturbating. I manipulated her emotionally by making her doubt her feelings. She knew she was right, but wanted to believe me so bad, and I took advantage of that. In September of 2023 I still maintained that I wasn't dating, but that I wanted to. I encouraged her to go on dating sites and start dating, that I would watch our toddler for her so she could date others and have the romantic connection, and simple human connection, she craved. Unfortunately, this caused so many triggers for her that she began drinking again. It got bad, fast. I found her at home unconscious drunk during the day with our toddler running around. I told her I would have to take him away if she didn't get help. She swore she would, but things just got worse. She started going on 2 to 4 day benders. Showing up high on something, not looking, talking, or acting like herself. I was so hurt and so angry. I started sleeping at my coworker's house a few nights a week and set up cameras at home to make sure our toddler was safe while I wasn't there. She asked me for help and I gave her therapists' names and offered to pay for everything. I was also giving her $2,000, $3,000 a month spending money, while carrying all expenses except groceries. I offered to get maids to take care of cleaning and reduce the load. We reached a point where she said she needed to be out of this house and away from my clothes, my smell, my presence, so she could heal. I told her I needed the freedom to drug or alcohol test her at any time to make sure our toddler was safe. This became an emergency court action and she eventually agreed. I helped her get a new townhouse, gave her the car, but she drove drunk and crashed it, twice. My insurance covered the repairs both times, totaling $17,000. It became very scary. Her grandma died, who was one of the last people who she felt connected to. I could see a dark change in her, and she began wearing her grandma's hats and bracelets. Her other grandma died not long after, and she got even worse. I reached out to my wife's brother to express my concern, and to my surprise, he was not angry with me. He was just as scared as me, and we met to talk about our fear that she was dying. Selfishly, my thoughts were that I could never escape being the rescuer to my wife's emergencies. There was always an emergency. If I wasn't having an affair and simply ended our marriage, it would have still been a 10/10 betrayal, and she still would have viewed me the same way, I think. Who knows if I'm right. I held fast and didn't end my affair to reconcile or just be a support for her. I maintained that she needed to go to AA, go to therapy, and stop going on 2 to 4 day benders forcing me to be off work and confusing/scaring our toddler. I decided to move out in March 2024. My wife got her own place in April 2024. I couldn't financially manage paying my wife $2,000 per month net to help her survive while also paying for my own household and expenses. I cut my work hours from 50 hours per week to 20, so I could watch our toddler. This allowed my wife to work. My coworker and I were becoming more serious, and I opened up to my wife about the fact that I was dating her but lied about the timeline. I said I started dating her in October. She was devastated, and confirmed that I had been lying the whole time. She said she was not comfortable with my coworker being around our child until we had been dating for a year. My coworker said she needs me to be completely honest with my wife, no more lies, no more half-truths. So I was. I told my wife I had been dating my coworker since May 2023. She was devastated all over again. She went through all the events I gaslit her about, all the lies, all the times it seemed like we were connecting, and told me that this was going to kill her. The lack of honesty and betrayal. I was her person, her husband, the one person who didn't leave her no matter how she treated me or what she did, and that in 2022 she finally started feeling safe with me. We were talking about having a second child, but at the end of 2022 I backed out because I didn't want to have another child before the drinking issue was treated. She told me she wants me to be totally honest with my coworker, and if I was and my coworker didn't leave me, she would meet my coworker and consent to our child being around during the days I had our toddler at my house. I told my coworker most of the truth but didn't tell her that I was unfaithful to her with my wife 3 times over the year. Obviously, my coworker felt hurt, betrayed, angry, and sad, and she demanded that I don't continue conversations with my wife, don't go to her house, and don't play the role of her support figure. I should have said it's difficult, I know it's unfair, but this is my child's mother who is in crisis and my primary responsibility right now is to come clean about everything and try to help my wife get sober and healthy. I didn't though. I tried my best to toe the line. I wanted to keep my new relationship and work my way up to being honest. I was in therapy. I FaceTimed my wife daily either to do bedtime stories with our toddler when he was at her place, or vice versa. I took her food to show affection through her grieving process with her grandmother's deaths and our divorce. In mid-May of this year, I realized I couldn't do this. I would rather be with my wife, drinking or not, and do my best to help her. Seeing her in this much pain and knowing how much I contributed and how awful I was, I knew I had to stop what I was doing. I called my mom, she lives far away, in case anyone wonders why she was not a family support for our child, to tell her the truth about everything. My mom was very disappointed in me, but supported me in returning to my wife. I decided to sleep on it. If I still felt so strongly and so certainly the next day, I would tell my coworker that I am sorry but I must prioritize my family. In the morning, I got a call that she had died by suicide the night before. She left a note saying that she could not handle the PTSD and nightmares from me gaslighting her. She was clear in the note that this was my fault, that I betrayed and abandoned her and left her alone during the worst time of her life. She was clear, explicitly, that I killed her. The coroners and detectives warned me not to read the note, but I had to know. I came clean to my coworker about everything, including my intent to leave. Now I have lost my wife, the mother of my child, my person. I see clearly now how, despite her flaws and faults, and although her drinking was not my fault, the stress I caused her that often triggered her to drink was my fault. I see how much more I could have done. I see how horribly abusive I was. My wife was too, but not in the recent past. I see how distorted I was. I wake up in the night often. I cry constantly. I have breakdowns multiple times per day. I shake. I feel sick. I might as well have killed my wife myself. My child is going to grow up with no family except for me. When they are 18 and asks me the truth about their mom, I will tell them, and they will hate me. I don't need any of you to tell me how awful I am. I already know. I want to die. If it wasn't for my toddler, I would kill myself. I now struggle day to day trying to stay alive to look after my child. I hate myself. I hate what I have done. I hate that I will never have a chance to explain to her. I hate that I slept on it. I was less than 12 hours away from making my decision while she was alive, and I'm certain it would have prevented her death. Why? I hate that I prioritized the person I knew and dated for a year over the person I was with for 15 years, married, and had a child with. Yeah, she abused me, who fucking cares, she would have always been there. If I had put in more effort, she would have been okay. All she needed was some support. She was alone in the world except for me, and I checked out on her. Yeah, she refused so many chances to heal or address her issues before, but who the fuck cares? Why be spiteful or say should have changed when you had the chance? All that matters is that she was ready, that it wasn't on my timeline didn't warrant my spiteful withdrawal. I ruined my life. I killed my wife. I lost my girlfriend. I destroyed my family. I destroyed my wife's family. I devastated my mom, who lost a daughter, and now has a shell of a son. I upped my life insurance to $3. I hope I die. My child will be set for life and will not have to deal with having a monster for a father. So many people tried to warn me. My coworker asked me many times if I was certain I was done with my wife. She said if I wanted to try again with her I could, and she would wait for me. My best friend warned me. My wife begged me to give her one more chance. I am so sorry for what I have done. I do not deserve to live. Since I last posted, time has moved in a kind of slow motion. It's like every thought, every moment is being played on a grainy, flickering reel in my head that won't stop skipping back. But as much as I wish the world had pressed pause, it kept going. If you're still reading, here's what's happened since, that is, what reality has been like in the weeks after everything shattered for good. After my wife's funeral, I stumbled through the necessary motions while feeling completely disconnected from my own body. The service was small. Her brother, whose eyes looked hollow, helped coordinate things and, for the first time, there was no silent blame between us. We just worked together to make sure our son was cared for while people drifted through our orbit, dropping their condolences and casseroles that I couldn't taste. Our friends, or what was left of that word, were torn. Some came to say goodbye, others kept a steady distance, unsure what to say to me. When the eulogy came, I couldn't speak. Her brother tried. He spoke mostly about her from before the darkness, the little things she loved, zebra pens, apple blossoms, snowy mornings watching, reruns in pajamas. We played one of her favorite songs, a folk cover she used to hum to our son. He clutched my suit jacket and went eerily still when he saw her picture beside the urn. The weeks after the funeral were a hurricane of paper and logistics. Her estate, her belongings, her bank accounts to close, her phone kept dinging with appointment reminders she'd never attend. She had unfinished knitting projects in a box under her bed. I found one of her journals and, after a full hour of just holding it, I sat on the basement floor and read it. The writing was chaotic, just flashes of pain, hope, guilt. She wrote about being scared all the time, about wanting to get better for me and our son, but every entry was tangled with confusion. Multiple times, she mentioned being convinced I would leave her. The thing that broke me, she still wrote about missing me, even when I was sleeping in the same house, just a floor away. Meanwhile, the investigation into her death ran its course. The police interviewed me formally. I sat in a tiny beige room across from a detective who spoke to me like I was balancing on a ledge, careful, deliberate, but with underlying suspicion. Her note was evidence. My texts and our call records were examined. Even now, every time my phone buzzes, my blood pressure spikes, just waiting for some new fallout. The detectives eventually closed the case, but not without ministerial warnings about seeking therapy, watching my son for signs of trauma, and getting extra support. CPS came. 2 women in cardigans sat on my couch and asked me about routines, food, my son's development. I answered everything with clipped, dead words. When they asked if I had anyone to help with him, I lied and said yes, and they nodded, made notes, promised resources. They returned a week later. The check-ins were surprise visits, and each time I had to show them that our son had food, a clean bed, and a toy fort I built because I couldn't face the silence of story time without his mother. Speaking of my son, the hardest new reality has been parenting alone. For the first week he kept running to the front window at dusk, peering through the glass like he was expecting her car to pull up. He fixated on his mother's necklace, he wanted to wear her locket, so now it hangs off his tiny neck, clanging against his superhero shirts. I tried to keep routines: breakfast, playtime, nap, dinner, story, bed. At night, he would cry for her, and eventually I broke the rule. I started sleeping in his room. I'd lie awake as he snored, thinking how I'll have to explain all this someday, to somehow frame it so it doesn't break him. I started therapy, real therapy, not the perfunctory sessions I used to blow off. The therapist's office smells like lavender and dust, and every week, it's the same. I sit and tell her I don't know how to keep going. I tell her about the suicide note. I admit all of it, the affair, the lies, the gaslighting, everything you already know. She listens, takes notes, and asks questions that sound philosophical but are really just arrows. How am I going to keep my son's life from echoing mine? How do you atone to someone who isn't alive to forgive you? Her questions hurt, but a part of me is grateful, for the pain, at least, which reminds me I'm still capable of feeling something for someone other than myself. As spring turned to summer, bureaucracy took over. The hardest decision I had to make was what to do with her things. Her old sketchbooks, hidden notes from years ago we used to exchange before bills and bruises and hospital visits ate up all our energy. These small artifacts brought everything to the surface. I let her brother take what he wanted, gave some things to charity, and packed the rest in boxes for our son to have when he's older, if he wants any of it. My relationship with my coworker is over, for good. She tried to reach out, but I ignored the calls. There's no piece of that past I want to carry forward, out of loyalty to my wife or just a revulsion at what I became. After I admitted everything, she said she would forgive me if I could forgive myself first. That's her last message, still sitting unread. There have been moments, sometimes in the car, sometimes just sitting on the porch after putting my son to bed, when the grief barrels into me so hard I can't move. A few times, I've wound up out in random parking lots at midnight, clutching the steering wheel, replaying her voice messages. I even called her old number once just to listen to her voicemail greeting, before remembering her brother said he planned to shut off the line. I haven't deleted any of our texts, not even the ugly ones. By early summer, my son started asking more questions: where mommy went, when she'll come back, why she isn't here for pancakes or story time or to clap at his silly dances. I haven't told him the truth. I say she's gone, that she loved him very much, that sometimes hearts get so sick that people need to rest and can't come back. I read every book I can find about talking to kids about death, but none of them cover our particular maze of guilt and ghosts. I worried about his preschool, worried who would pick him up, how he'd adapt, whether I'd break down crying just dropping him off. The teachers were gentle, asking if he needed counseling, giving him extra art projects to express his feelings. He drew a picture of our family with mommy floating up, tethered to a balloon. I put it on the fridge, next to a picture he drew of a dinosaur eating cookies. Because life continues, both beautiful and absurd. Her brother and I have become close. He checks in every week, and I've let him take our son to the park. Watching them together, I started to hope, fragile as it is, that my son can have at least one family tie outside of me. I even apologized to him for all of it. He surprised me by saying that none of this was as simple as one person's blame, but I saw the anger and loss in his eyes too. I started volunteering, sometimes anonymously online, talking to people who are in dark places. I don't know if it helps them, but it helps me feel a little less doomed, maybe even useful. I started cooking again, even though I don't eat much. I build Lego towers with my son. I call my mom once a week, and even if we sit in silence, it's better than nothing. I had dreams about her, nightmares, mostly, but sometimes relief. We're lying in our old apartment, talking and laughing. None of this has happened. Sometimes I wake up and forget, just for a minute, that she's gone. And the truth is, I don't know how, or if, I'll ever stop loving her, or stop torturing myself with what I could have done differently. There is no happy ending, but lately there are flashes: our son's face, or a good day without tears, or the rare afternoons I forget to hate myself, when I think I might be able to keep moving forward, if not for me, then for him. The only thing I can say with certainty now is that nothing is fixed, nothing is over, but bit by bit, the air gets a little less heavy, the mornings a little more manageable, and the future less terrifying. At night, I sit with my son and we talk about the stars. I tell him that sometimes people we love are in the stars, watching us. I tell him it's okay to hurt, and that I'll always be here. I don't know if it's enough. All I can do is keep moving, one day at a time, for as long as he needs me.